feel like genres establish the listener's expectations for like what sounds they can anticipate to hear from what the genre is.
A lot of the neuroscience around music perception has to do with patterns. It engages the same mechanisms that you use to expect things and get rewards for being right about your expectations or be like challenged for getting them wrong. And the same neural circuits are triggered when you listen to music. So it shows that an important part is having expectations, those expectations being fulfilled, not fulfilled, or subverted in an interesting way.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
That's it.
That sounds like a theory.
That also would explain why there's a difference between like music that other musicians enjoy and music that you just casually and people who don't play music enjoy. Now there's like superior to either one, but once you like play music, you're looking for very different things than just a casual music enjoyer ends up looking for.
You got different systems of expectations.
Is that to say genre should be applied more for non-music players rather than music players? Because it's like for a non-musician, it's like a genre is a comfort zone. You know, it's like I'm comfortable listening to this and whatnot.
I would still I do still like the idea of like doing a genre on something because it lets you know at least like what category you're looking into.
Yeah.
Like you're still gonna look at it, I feel, slightly more like broadly put and in a different way, but it's still just like nice to know, am I listening to something that's gonna be heavy or am I listening to something that's gonna be emotional?
I'd also say it has a qualitatively different meaning for musicians. Like you can recognize little genre shout-outs. There's traditions around genres. And the way you can appreciate the way people bring different traditions to different kinds of music. And I think genre becomes useful for musicians mostly to describe violations of genre in that way.
Do you think that there is a specific instrument that controls the definition of the genre? Like, coming from a drummer's perspective, you give me a guitar loop, I play a different rhythm over it, say, 4 different rhythms. It can completely change the vibe of it. Do you think there's an instrument that specifically controls that?
I feel like the instrumentation doesn't control the type of music, especially like with looking at pop music, for example, with how diverse pop music is. It has every instrument involved. So I feel like the instrumentation itself is what dictates it, the melodies and the rhythms being used, as opposed to specific individual instruments.
It's a conglomerate.
Yeah, I'd say primarily it'd be a rhythmic thing, because genre for me is it's a cultural distinction.
Yeah.
Genre
is like a culmination of like melody, rhythm, and the cultural like history behind those two things.
I'll say a lot of the time it can be at least strongly influenced by a single instrument. You add the sound of a 808 and most listeners think hip hop, like those who are exposed to popular music. And so that's a powerful tool in that way. And the similar idea with metal and distorted guitars. Like if it's distorted enough, then it's hard to put it in a song without evoking metal.
Yeah. Well, it's all about the way you use those instruments, and that goes back, because also, the 808, that was used to make Suicide's first album, one of the first known punk bands. It's I think even in that it just goes back to the rhythm how the things are used. You got the guitar in just about every genre nowadays, but, you know, reggae is very different from metal, very different from rock and roll. You know, if you hear boom chop, then you know it's reggae. If you hear chunka 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 chung, you know it's old time rock and roll. You know, if you hear da 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 da, you know it's metal. You know.
Every genre has a set of functions. Every genre has a set of codes that they use to achieve those functions. And the functions are things to do with identity, things to do with just the feeling of your body, like a horizon of intensity. And then the codes are whatever means they use to get there. And the codes become symbols or icons for, I guess, this route to a kind of experience. So to get more specific about punk and metal, just the feeling of tenseness, sort of aggression. You want to go out and fight people. You get blasted with a wall of sound. These are the physiological effects of it, and it causes this fight or flight response. And that's like an effect people identified, and it's been identified before, specifically in worship music. There's some theories that that's one of the origins of religion, is they learned ways to manipulate sounds to make people feel awe and fear. And if you put religious words to it, you attribute that to a god. And that's why various religious institutions invest in very loud, very bass-heavy instruments like the organ.
The church was very smartly built.
You built the entire building around the organ.
It's
like
an acoustic,
it's made to have this awe-striking energy.
And the acoustics within it are specifically crafted
cathedrals,
for it to hit you.
Kind of piggybacking off of that too, I kind of noticed that with different genres, like, for example, you know, rap. Like anytime I get into my little rap kick, somewhere in the back of my mind, I feel like a little thug to certain types of rap. Like I'm listening to, you know, DaBaby or something like that. It makes me feel more, you know, thuggish when I'm listening to it. Tyler, the Creator, certain songs of his, versus like you go and listen to Frank Ocean, you feel a lot more, you know, I guess sensual, for lack of better words. And
well, I mean, if it's done right, the flow dictates how, like, you're supposed to mentally operate at the time. Again, that's why I love David Diggs. He's talking about, like, very abstract things in a lot of clipping songs, and he's using very abstract rhyme schemes and, like, very off-putting patterns when he's talking about off-putting things, and it's just, if you're flowing right, like, you can flow and make someone, like, know the exact way you're walking when you're walking down the road just by, the patterns you're using.
You can throw them off if you want to, too.
Exactly. You can also make them, like, know if you're on crack in the story you're telling. You can make them know, like, what you're on just by how you're doing it.
A good artist knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
These are the physical effects, but there's also a dimension that's talking about music, using music. That's what the sound of an 808 is. It's not tied necessarily to any one effect, like it was used in punk music. It was used in all kinds of music. It just got circulated in hip-hop as it was entering the mainstream. And now it's tied to hip-hop, and it's, as a popular music listener, unless you're, maybe a lot of musicians can sort of navigate around these effects, but for most listeners, it's hard to hear an 808 and not think hip-hop. Just like it's hard to hear PV and not think about metal.
And the 808, I might be wrong, but it became the main, like, the commonplace sound just because it was a cheap drum machine, not because it had the best sound. Like, it wasn't chosen due to its sounding this way. It was chosen due to that's what people could use to make the songs they wanted.
And specifically, it was cheap because the pop industry said, no, this sucks. It flopped its first line, and then it was super cheap on the secondhand market.
Well, and that even is a point where it's, yeah, they have access to stuff that the mainstream people don't have access to necessarily, because there's no reason in hell you would have this in your studio. Like, if you right now wanted to recreate the sound, you'd have to go out and try to, like, buy some low-end thing, which I very much like, that idea.
You want a beer?